We've got a very busy show, football-centric tonight, but we're not quite sure whether it's the final football show of the year or whether we've got another one coming. That's something we'll get into tonight, discussing Oregon State Bowl possibilities. But we do know that the regular season is over, and we'll be recapping it tonight, starting with our reaction to one of the great Civil War games in the 117-year history of the rivalry. And as always, I'm honored to be joined by two Oregon State greats, proud alumna from the class of 1997 and the publisher of BeaverBlitz.com. More on that in a holiday special later. Angie Machado. Good evening, Angie.
Good evening, guys.
And former Beaver great and NFLer Tim Ewis joining us. Timmy, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike.
Let's jump right into, and Angie, let me get your reaction first. There's still a sense for me, anyway, of a missed opportunity and pain and regret and things that could have happened and the what-ifs in that great game. But I think first and foremost, we acknowledge what a great football game that was, and I think Beaver Nation was proud of how the Beavers played. What was your reaction to it?
Oh, yeah, the what-ifs, that kind of set in a day or two later. But I was just, as we talked about last week, I wanted to see the Beavers have fun again and have, go out and be aggressive and play like they had some passion, and they did. And it was so refreshing to see that on all aspects. They were jumping around, they were fired up, and I mean, just what a great game. I mean, just a classic, run game. Everything was coming together for them.
The jumping around you mentioned on the radio broadcast, I welcome people back to the fourth quarter. Welcome back to Autzen, and the Dancing Beavers are having a good time. That was evident that they came with passion and energy.
And just having fun. I mean, like Tim's talked about all season, when they're having fun, when a player's having fun, it shows on the field as well, and they were motivated.
What's your overall take from that game, Tim?
You could see the passion on the sideline, Mike, and after that just awful performance the week before against Washington, and I think a lot of fans were really grading this team on their final reaction to them on what happened in this game. And if they'd have gone out and lost terribly, it would have been a reaction after the Washington game and then a Civil War played poorly that this team is not who we thought they were, especially those first 7 games. And then I think fans were able to walk away and have a takeaway that, hey, Beavers controlled the clock, 35 minutes and change, 230-plus yards on the ground, another 300-yard passing game by Sean. They are who we thought they were. It's just too bad that they couldn't, convert against Stanford, against SC, and then down the trail there. So it left us with hope for the future, I think, and maybe we actually want to see these guys play in a bowl game now.
I think that's the biggest thing for me anyway, is the fact that you did go 6-6, and that's not what you were hoping for or expecting when the season began. But it's a 6-6 that feels differently, even if the record's the same, had you lost the game big. Then I don't think there would have been an ounce of enthusiasm from a fan base or anyone else per se to go play another game. But the way the Beavers played this last game, it's like, I want to see this team again. I want to see them build on that running game performance.
And here's a team that fell behind 14-0 early in that Civil War game. And I'm not going to lie, I was one of them sitting there thinking, oh no.
Kind of, uh-oh.
Uh-oh, but to watch them battle back, and they controlled it. I mean, here's a Duck team that's scoring well above that 36 that Oregon State allowed.
231 yards rushing. Teron Ward, 145, so we didn't have to talk about a season bereft of a 100-yard rusher. Ward got it. Storm Woods had a good game. Timmy, what about the running game? What happened to revitalize it to the tune of 231 yards?
We'll take a look at it in the play breakdown, Mike, but really they got a hat on a hat. They were well-designed plays, and I think part of that is Coach Riley has gone against Coach Aliotti so many times over the years. They really understand what that Duck defense is all about and how to exploit some of the weaknesses in it. And the guys up front did a good job. They stayed on blocks. They finished blocks. They had hat on a hat, and they got the running back past the line of scrimmage, which has not happened the majority of this season. So tight ends did a much better job blocking in space, and that was a big part of the key to that run success.
And speaking of tight ends, I mean, I thought it was also interesting, a reaction to the struggles and an adjustment. Those heavy sets at times with 4 tight ends on the field. I mean, it had a little bit of the Stanford feel, and I think it may have taken Oregon by surprise early in the game.
I started out watching the game thinking they took some plays out of Stanford's film right here, putting 3 and 4 tight ends on the field. I really felt that. They went to that heavy package. That changed once Connor hurt his knee and had to come out of the game, and you had to go to more of those spread looks. But you could see from the get-go, Oregon State wanted it to be a physical game up front and for them to rush the ball consistently.
And Angie, I thought too, in terms of down the stretch of the season, and even though the Washington game didn't have much to really like, the last 2 games, a young man named Victor Bolden, whose role will expand and could be even a bigger role depending on decisions that are made going forward with a certain junior whom we'll talk about more. But Victor Bolden to return a kick for a touchdown and then the next week a fly sweep for a touchdown speaks well of his future.
Yeah, and I think beginning of the season, before the season started, that was the name I told you guys to watch for.
Yeah.
He's so fast, he's so athletic, and it just takes a little while. I mean, if you remember Brandon Cooks, his freshman year, it takes a while to get their legs under him, and Victor's the type of kid that he's very sport savvy. He knows it. He's quiet, he's cerebral, but he's got the speed.
Tim, I got to ask you something. A lot of people have talked about the what ifs. I mean, when Victor turns and looks like James Rodgers in 07 flying down the right side for the TD, was there any part of you looking back, I mean, should he slide down at the 3 and allow the Beavers to run the clock out? You can't tell a kid that's suppressing 65 million years of gut instinct to invoke Jurassic Park. You can't tell a kid not to score there, can you?
What happens if we miss a field goal, Mike?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You take points when you can get points. I firmly believe that.
Well, but then you hear Duck fans saying, oh, well, Helfrich told them to let him score.
No,
that doesn't happen.
No,
you know?
we'll look at that play specifically.
Yeah.
There was a hat on a hat. It was well designed. I say take points when you can get them. And that being said, there's a what if you don't go up for 4th down earlier in the game and you get field goal there. And so you take points when you can get them, Mike.
The what ifs will, I think, drive us all crazy.
Yes,
So we'll put those aside. And coming up, Tim's going to take a look at that fly sweep and some other plays. Later on, Angie will have a recruiting update. We're glad you've joined us. Tim breaks down plays from the Civil War next on Talkin Beavers. As we take a look at the final box score together of the 117th Civil War at Autzen Stadium, that box reflects the 1-point game, 36-35. And so the box score reflects, Tim, how close this game was, and you've got some plays that show why the Beavers were in this thing all the way.
You know, a great game plan on both sides of the ball, Mike. It really was. It was a better defensive game plan, execution than I think we've seen in several years, holding them to under 600 yards. When they've piled up the yards, you know, they did a great job defensively. So we're going to take a look at the offense first here. And we talked about the running game earlier in the show. We're going to look at Teron Ward's big run here. So first play we want to look at, simple down, kick out scheme, Mike. We're going to have a wide receiver one-on-one at the top. We have a safety stacked over the top. Watch how this safety retreats. And this offside linebacker on the slot, Sean sees a blitz. He knows it's a blitz coming. You got a one-on-one by the tight end and 3 down blocks by the O-lineman. Then we're going to have the guard, Grant Inger, pulling and really reaming up through that hole. And look at that. You got inside hat placement by the tight end, outside hat placement by the guard, and Teron on a great path, hat on a hat across the board. And that's where these plays were so well designed. Then you got Cookie running his guy on a fade and then turn around, swivel blocking and finish on him. Ward doesn't even get taken to the ground. So just great execution, great play design. Look at Grant there just rooting the guy out. Really well executed. We haven't seen that execution up front this year in the run game.
A beautiful sight. And again, I think, Angie, that argues for let's do it again this year. Let's play a game in a few weeks and go after it again.
Exactly, and I think that's what the bowl game, and then just the bowl game with practice for the young guys.
Exactly.
It's huge.
There was more to what the Beavers did. Let's take a look. What do you got for us next?
Another guy rushing the ball that we've talked about a lot this year, Victor Bolden. This guy is quick.
This is the play, isn't it?
This is the play. This is what you want to see, Mike. This is the play. So let's just get to the film. Here we go. Fly sweep action. Little reminiscent of James Rodgers. One-on-one on the outside. Again, one-on-one on the inside. Split tight end. Gonna block the safety. Anderson at fullback. Gonna block that outside linebacker. Bolden coming across. Grabbing the fly sweep. Getting behind Anderson. We got hat on a hat. 2 guys outside. Anderson blocking the middle guy. And really, Bolden just taking the path, using that speed that Angie's talked about all year that really got him recruited to Oregon State. And there's Duck fans that want to say that they let him score there, that they missed a tackle.
Yeah.
They didn't miss a tackle, Mike. That was a really well-designed play, called at an opportune time, hat on a hat blocking again. It's set up earlier in the game by such a good inside run scheme. Yeah. They had to play man on the outside and really, again, I've used that word a lot, but well executed.
Beautifully executed.
Beautifully.
And at that moment, Angie, what were your thoughts in that moment, watching it? Bolden on a beautifully executed. Tim's broken it down so nicely for us. Why it worked. A minute and a half to go, the Beavers with the lead. What were you thinking?
My thought was awesome.
Yeah.
awesome. And then I looked at the clock and I went, ooh, it's the Ducks. They can score quickly. But, I mean, what a play. And it was, it gave, that hope. And
No,
all the defense, you want that to be the end of the game. You want your defense to make the stop and not rely on an offense to make a score.
Yeah, the ridiculous notion that they, quote-unquote, let them score
that's
is hardly worthy of comment. They didn't. It is true that Mark Helfrich turned to somebody on the sideline, he said, we might have just gotten a break that they scored then, because Mark, of course, trusts his offense to do what it did. But the point is, you run a play and the Beavers executed it and took the lead. Thanks for the breakdown. That really showed why that worked. But there was more to what the Beavers were able to do in this game in the passing game.
Again, the defensive execution against the Ducks' run game, against their passing game, so important. So we're going to take a look at how they were able to stop Mariota. We're going to take a look at this first play here. Mariota in the backfield, offset back. Let's look at what we got here. Outside linebacker. He's kind of in the halfway point between the receiver and the tackle. This tight end, this H-back, is going to come across. He's got a kick-out block, that Zach blocker. He's coming across to block the outside linebacker. And look at this. Mariota kept the ball. That's his read. It's the right read. But look at all the Beaver defenders that have really played the play the way it's supposed to be played. It's disciplined football, and that's what it takes to beat the Ducks, Mike. Discipline every play and not trying to do too much.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, Marcus's knee, his left knee, has been bothering him for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season a little bit, but he exploded for some good runs, and the Beavers just did a better job of containing him, as you said.
They have playmakers, Mike, and they made plays, and we changed our defensive plan a little bit, got into some of those prevent 3-man rushes instead of putting the pressure on Mariota as we had earlier. We're going to take a look at the final touchdown and just break down why Oregon was able to score, and it was a great football play. We're going to look at, we got the 3-man rush, as I said. We're playing 8 guys deep. 2-man side here down at the bottom of the screen, a little stack action almost. We're playing it kind of a quarters look. They're going to split the defenders. Here we go, right here. We got a stack look. Now Huff is behind. That means he gets to make the break, and that's what's so tricky about these stack looks. He breaks inside on a deeper safety defender and makes a play, catching the ball behind his head.
Like you've said before, you have to remember, Oregon's getting paid too. And that receiver, I mean, Huff had probably the best game he's had in his career on
Angie,
senior night.
did you say Oregon's getting paid too?
It's just it's a figure of speech, right? Hey, after this great game, we could award game balls, I think, to a lot of people. But it's time for our Wilson Motors game balls. Tim, get us started on that. Who gets your game ball out of this great Civil War?
Great senior lineman. We saw Grant Inger pull, ream through that hole, did a great job all year of blocking when he was healthy, and he's had just such a great career at Oregon State. Grant Inger gets my game ball.
Captain Inger, how about you, Angie?
I'm going to Ron Ward. I've been preaching all year about the run game, and it was just fun to see it actually finally happen.
And I'm hoping Tehran gets another opportunity. We'll be talking about that. My game ball goes to the Pac-12 all-time single-season leader, past Marquise Lee and Keyshawn and everybody else. The great number 7, Brandon Cooks, with 10 more catches, the all-time single-season record holder with 120 receptions. And for me, he's the front runner for the Fred Biletnikoff Award. And we'll be talking more about Cookie as we roll on from Flat Tail Brewing. Talkin Beavers continues, presented by Wilson Motors. It's time now for our Taco Bell Top 5 for the week. And there it is. As I alluded to in the last segment, Brandon Cooks stands atop. This great passing quarterback conference. There have been tremendous combinations through the years. But Brandon Cooks, working primarily with Sean Mannion, is the #1 all-time single-season receiving leader. We've been seeing the records with Cooks just fall one after the other. This one, though, Angie, for me, is a big one. To see Cooks, our own Brandon Cooks, atop this list, a distinguished list indeed.
Huge. I mean, USC is known. I mean, I know they're tailback U or whatever, but they're known for having those big, physical, great wide receivers. And for him to be atop of that, again, Marquise Lee, Keyshawn Johnson, I mean, seriously, that's a great honor for him and just shows what a hard worker and great season he's had.
And we'll talk a little bit as we go about Brandon Cooks' future, but the people that he's ahead of on this list did pretty well for themselves.
Mike, you look at Marquise Lee, a probable first-rounder, Keyshawn Johnson, first-rounder, Woods, second-rounder, Douglas, fourth-rounder. All NFL draft picks, all had good, solid careers. The thing I like to look at is there's only one coach that coached 2 players on that list.
Now, that's very interesting. In fact, Coach Riley has said that when he was the offensive coordinator at USC that he talked to Keyshawn Johnson about a decision between, do I come back for my senior year or not? Well, Keyshawn did and became the #1 draft pick after his great '95 season at USC. We'll have a little more on that issue as it relates to the Beavers later, but it's been a real pleasure to watch Brandon Cooks grow at Oregon State and his good friend and teammate Storm Woods. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of a feature we've really enjoyed this year. Run and catch with Storm and Brandon.
Benefits of being a Beaver.
Well, I'd say the benefits of being a Beaver is, first of all, in my opinion, you're being coached by one of the greatest head coaches in college football, and a staff that he surrounds us with. And also, you can say you're part of a family.
All right, I would have to second you with the coaching staff and one of the greatest coaches. And another thing I like is it's like we're a blue-collar program. We don't get all the 5-star recruits. We don't get all that. But when you come here, you work hard and you get to develop into one of the greatest players in the nation.
So what's my most annoying habit?
You're always singing and dancing, no matter what time of day it is. It could be 2 in the morning, you can be going to use the restroom, and you still have to sing. I feel like you just go handle your business and that's it, but you always have to sing. You always sing.
Yours?
What's my most annoying habit?
You snore too much, first of all. You know, you wake me up. If I do go use the bathroom in the middle of the night, I get caught off guard by this bear that's sleeping in my house. So that's probably yours, and you need to stop. You need to go get that fixed out or something like that.
Can't help that, bro. Distractions of an OSU football player.
That's a good question. I feel like when you come here, there's not too many distractions. I don't know if I can think of one. What about you?
Mine would be, well, coming from the path I went on with the red shirt and stuff, how you develop, and then when the media comes to you, it sort of tends to hype you. Instead of believing in the hype, you just have to keep working hard so you can reach your ultimate goal. That would be my only one.
I would say red shirt too, just because you come from a high school and obviously you're the man because you wouldn't be getting recruited to a D1 level. And then it's like you have to start over. Now you're the little fish in the big pond. And so I will agree with you on red shirt and being an unexpected distraction. Toughest thing about your day?
Probably have to say getting through the whole day as opposed, not no more, but the fall camp days, you know, with the doubles and the film. You know, you're tired, but at the same time, you're just driven because you know that all that hard work is going to someday pay off in the game. And you're being watched. You have to be a leader out there. So my toughest day would probably be getting through the 2 days.
Mine has to be going to sleep. I can never go to sleep. One, I just sometimes can't sleep at night, and 2, you're always being loud, like, or if he's on FaceTime, or he always has to do something, and then he'll just call me to come downstairs for nothing. I'm like, what do you want, Storm? And I just want to see you. So my toughest part of my day is being able to go to sleep at night just because of you.
Well, we thank the guys for sharing their thoughts with us all year. And we take a look at Brandon Cooks specifically coming out of our run catch feature. And I think Brandon, when you look at those numbers, Tim, I think he's the front runner, the favorite. I think the Beavers are going to get their second Bolitnikoff Award winner.
I really think you're right, Mike. And again, on a little bit of a down year, kind of like when Mike Hass won his. But I do like the fact that he's leading the nation right now in receptions. He's scored so many touchdowns, we've lost track of them. And the guy, I've said it from day one, he is the best route runner in the country. He's been coached well. He listens to his coaching. He does what he's coached to do, and he does it the best he can every time. And when you're blessed with some of the things he is athletically, doing it the best every time is pretty darn good.
Well, he will get a chance to go to the award show, and I think that he will indeed be blessed with that honor, and it'll be a great team award. Sean Mannion and Brandon Cooks have given Beaver Nation tremendous thrills throughout their careers and this year, and I think those two alone make an eloquent argument to play again, and that's why I think there'll be, among other reasons, but those are compelling ones, an opportunity for the Beavers to keep playing. We'll get into more on that later. It's been a pretty tumultuous week around the Pac-12 conference, so coming up next, we'll get into a little bit about a coach from the north taking her south to Los Angeles. We'll talk about that and implications for recruiting and more as we roll on Talkin Beavers. At the midway point of the show already, we've looked back at that classic 117th Civil War. We've featured the great Brandon Cooks in his record-setting season and career at Oregon State. We've heard from both Storm and Brandon. Still to come, we'll get the best of Mike Riley from the 2013 season, as well as bowl possibilities still ahead for the Beavers in 2013. But as I mentioned earlier, it's been a busy week in the Pac-12 Conference, and one that certainly can change the landscape, particularly in the North, with Washington coach, now former Husky coach Steve Sarkisian, accepting the head coaching job at USC. Huge news. I don't know how stunning it is, but it's big news. Angie, what's your gut level reaction to that news?
So surprising. I actually grew up an SC fan, and I still follow them. I know, some Trojan. We follow it with our USCfootball.com, and Trojan fans aren't happy with this hire at all. I mean, a lot of them think it's Lane Kiffin 2.0. I think Sark's a little bit different level than Kiffin, but it's not a hit it out of the park hire for Hayden at all.
That's interesting. And I'm surprised at that, too. I mean, I thought that when you use the baseball analogy that Pat Hayden might be able to find that grand salami type guy home run hire. It could turn out to be. I remember when Mike Garrett hired Pete Carroll, it was kind of met with a ho-hum sort of reaction.
Paul Hackett 2.0.
We'll see about, where Sarkisian ends up. What are your thoughts about this move?
Well, there's a couple things I think you have to look at, Mike. Number one is the recruiting aspect of this whole business. He's moving from a place in Seattle that is not the easiest to recruit to, down to basically the mecca of where all of the athletes are at. So he doesn't have to get on a plane from Seattle to LA every other day to see recruits and make home visits. So recruiting will be easier for him. The other aspect of that is he also left some recruits at UW, and what coaches is he taking with him, and what coaches are staying on there to possibly try to interview for the head position, and what's going to happen to all those UW recruits. The other thing in the recruiting battle that I like is Washington is a stepping stone job. And it's viewed that way by recruits now. Coaches are going to go to Washington to try to move on to somewhere else, and they're going to know that there is stability in Corvallis.
Well, and it's still with the Washington job not filled, it's leaving uncertainty now. I mean, I know Jim Mora today said that he was staying at UCLA, but he was talking yesterday. So it leaves that uncertainty. If I'm an Oregon State coach, I'm hitting the trail hard right now and saying, hey, we're here.
And you're selling consistency.
I'm selling consistency.
Yeah.
This is a crucial time in recruiting right now.
Right now.
And with respect to that, if you have any thoughts about, how the Sark news might affect the Beavers or just the general update, but one thing that we do want to make sure everybody understands, you've got a holiday promotion going on that can get Beaver Nation at the heart of all this news. What is that exactly?
It's our best promotion I've ever seen. So you go to Beaver Blitz right now. There's a little box on the front page called the Holiday 99 deal. Basically, all new annual subscribers who sign up at Beaver Blitz for an annual subscription, $99.95 a year, will get a digital gift certificate to Fanatics.com, our team fan shop, for $99. No brainer. You get all your recruiting stuff and everything all in one spot.
So give us a sense of what's there now. What are you sharing with your fans in Beaver Blitz?
Recruiting is Oregon State has 20 plus commits right now. So now they're in this save mode and also trying to finish off the class with some star power. Last night, Beavers were in home with, he was a 4-star until he tore his ACL, Devontae Downs, a linebacker. So Coach Riley and Coach Bray were up in Seattle yesterday. They're in home with a tight end in Idaho. We talked about him a few weeks ago, Jake Knight, tonight. There's some really good players. They're actually being reevaluated right now. So you'll see the stars shift a little bit on the up. Some of these 2 stars are being bumped up, but some really good talent. Ricky Leachin is one of my favorites in this class. He's a linebacker out of Mission Hill, San Diego. Just won the CIF championship last night against Oceanside. Huge win for them. But he is a linebacker that Beaver Nation's going to love. I mean, just physical, tough kid. He's fast. I can see Trent doing wonders with the kid. And people on Beaver Blitz know I'm not typically super high on Oregon in-state athletes. Ryan Nall. He's out of Central Catholic. The kid does everything. He's a fullback. He's a defensive end. He's a linebacker. He's blowing up records at Central Catholic. Really fun prospect for Oregon State to watch.
Thank you, Angie, for that. And again, go to beaverblitz.com, find out about the promotion and this kind of information Angie brings with consistency on the great site, beaverblitz.com, and check out that tremendous holiday promotion. Coming up, we're going to see, did the Beavers, have they played? Was there civil war? Was there enough style points, in a sense, to compel Bulls with at-large opportunities to say, we want Oregon State and Mannion and Cooks, etc.? We'll talk more about that as we continue from Talkin Beavers, Flat-Tail Brewing in downtown Corvallis. It's time now for our standard TV and appliance rewind. And Angie, Tim, this is, in my opinion, and we've declared it to be together, the play of the year in 2013. Going back to Salt Lake City in overtime, Utah made a field goal. The Beavers then had their opportunity, and this is how this great game at Rice-Eccles Stadium ended, with Mannion to Cooks. One of their many connections. Tim, the play was close to not going, though, the way the Beavers wanted. Look at that deflection.
Mike, you look at that play and how close it was, just over the fingers of that dropping into the zone linebacker. Cook's bobbling it a little bit.
Right.
I mean, to think that going to a bowl game hinged on a play like that, Beaver Nation would have never thought it at the time. But it goes to show how important every single play is of every game.
Now, and that play kept the Beavers viable at the time and still does now as we take a look at possible bowl destinations for the Beavers. Without that play, they're not even in this conversation. So Oregon State getting that 51-48 win in Salt Lake City, and you can see the projections that we've gleaned for the show. There's San Diego and the Poinsettia Bowl against Utah State. The AdvoCare Bowl projected by a couple of different sites. That's the Independence Bowl in Shreveport. Angie, any opportunity now, as we've touched on, to see this team play again, whether in San Diego or Shreveport, I mean, the heart of Dallas, I mean, there are some possibilities out there. I think Beaver Nation, based on what we saw in Eugene, wants to see this team play again.
They do, and I think, though, like we've talked about a little earlier, it's so crucial for the team. Not only big for the seniors to get a little extra, one more game. It's big for the young guys to get the extra practice and recruiting. Oregon State's planning a big official visit weekend next Friday. It's going to be really dead if there's no practice going on and nothing going on.
So we're not going to know about this for a while. On our next show, we'll know whether the Beavers got in or not. But, Tim, you went to bowl games at Oregon State. Tell us the value, what Angie just alluded to. If the Beavers get into one of these things or something else that isn't even on the projections we've shown, the value of that for a program.
Well, what a great opportunity for the players to travel somewhere, get out of their comfort zone a little bit. You're talking about taking a whole team to Shreveport or Dallas. That's something those guys would never have the opportunity to do. I was able to go to Phoenix, to Hawaii, to Las Vegas. Just had a blast every time we traveled. Then you get your bowl practices, and it used to be 15. Now they've changed that limit. They can really practice almost as much as they want. You can get out on the field. There's all that extra teaching time, Mike, and that's what the Beavers have been so good at, is getting on the field, teaching those young guys, getting them ready, then getting them through spring ball, ready for the regular season. And at times, you don't even realize you lost some of those seniors. And that's scary to say because those seniors are such great players, but it really is a time for young guys to learn more football and get that one-on-one coaching and teaching with those position coaches. And then you have the mentors. You have the Grant Ingers, the juice boxes on the O-line that are able to coach some of the younger guys up. You got Brandon Cooks on the outside coaching Bolden up on the fly sweep. So that teaching time is what's important. I don't care anything about all of that. When you score half 100, Mike, against a team like Utah, you deserve a bowl game, in my opinion.
Well, Dennis Erickson used to say that that bowl prep was like another spring practice. It was like having that extra.
A whole nother spring practice.
Yeah.
No, and that half 100 doctrine that you just enunciated, absolutely true. Nobody did that really against them. That's a good defense. The Beavers played a great game in their last game. They took Stanford down to the final play of the game. I know there were some things that didn't go so well, and coming up, we're going to talk about some of the things we learned in the season, and still to come, we'll be reviewing and previewing and all of that. But this season was very close with the Stanford game and some of the other things, the Civil War, that didn't quite in the end work out the way they'd hoped. I'm hoping that they can close with a win.
You look at what happened. This team was this close from going, having 8 or 9 wins, and this close to having 4 wins. I mean, that's how tight this whole season was.
Let's all argue for a 7-win season and an opportunity, whether heart of Dallas or heart of Shreveport or heart of San Diego, wherever the Beavers can go, they want to go somewhere. And we'll be talking about it as we go on future shows here. And coming up next, we've got a lot more to talk about, including a review and a preview for the Beavers 2013 and 14. Thanks for joining us on Talkin Beavers. All season long, we certainly have enjoyed Tim Ewis's visits with Oregon State head coach and his former coach at Oregon State, Mike Riley. And we've compiled for what could be, we hope not, but what could be our final football show of 2013, the best of, as it were, the Coach Riley segments. Let's take a look.
What's something specific that has allowed you to take guys like me that weren't recruited by anybody else?
Well, you know, I think actually, I think we get good talent. I do. And you know, people, you know, I've heard that obviously through the years about that. And we might not get all the notoriety, guys, but I think we're good evaluators. And sometimes, you know, people are basically under the radar and shouldn't necessarily be. And I think what we have done is not pay attention to the star ratings. We try to, we have a system of how we look at a player. We'll take him through that system where there's been lots of eyes on him. And we have all been together a long time, so I think there's a pretty good understanding of what we're looking for. And that is why, our kind of deal is it doesn't matter how many stars you have coming in, it's how many do you have coming out. That's what we want. And so I think that we have actually recruited very good talent that's been allowed to develop. I think we also, because of that, maybe get guys that are hungry and really will go the extra mile. I love that about us at Oregon State, that we have an ethic of hard work that I think can carry over for their whole life, and that becomes an identity.
New coach meets you, conference, wants to pick your brain a little bit. How do you define your philosophy?
Oh boy, I think it goes back to my first head coaching job in Winnipeg, and I didn't really want to be a head coach when I was first offered it. I was coaching the defense. I was happy with that. I'd seen my dad go through a ton of different stuff being the head coach. I was asked questions like you just asked about what is your philosophy, and I didn't know what to say. But I do now, because what I did then is I started thinking about that, and I really looked at it from your eyes as a player. I said, what do I want from that guy right there? And I think they want two things. I think they want to be coached. They love the game. They love what they do. They want to get better at it, and they want to be on a winning team, so they want to be coached. And the other thing is they want to be treated right. So philosophically, that's the way we've always tried to approach it. We want to coach kids. We want to help them get better. We want a winning team, and we want to treat people right. And that is the foundation of everything that we do. And that really helps me when I look around hiring people. I want people that are experts at what they do, whether they're coaching the linebackers or cooking the hamburger. They got to be great at it. And we're fortunate. We're good in both of those areas, but they also have to be good people that treat people right.
Coach Riley, coming off a year that I know was somewhat tantalizing to him and to all of us in Beaver Nation, and maybe in some respects disappointing. But the job of football coach is pretty difficult in terms of the expectations and what fans. I mean, Nick Saban's under criticism in Tuscaloosa for the way that thing played out in that incredible Iron Bowl game. Angie, I don't know, the 6-6 year, Coach Riley and his staff will evaluate everything as they did coming off of 2011, and we saw a big jump, I believe, and we'll talk more about this in our next segment, but Coach Riley is the absolutely right person with this staff to get the Beavers into an even better place next year.
Yeah, and that's, Coach Riley is such, there's lots of talk, there's lots of discussion out there in Twitter land and message boards. Yeah, they need to sit down and figure some things out, I think, as a staff. But Coach Riley as a person is still, and a coach, he knows more football than any of us in our, and his little finger has more knowledge than us. And just that integrity. He brings that integrity and just, the welcomeness, talking about bowl games and having, high school coaches welcome. He welcomes fans. I mean, it's a real different atmosphere than a lot of other Pac-12 programs.
And Tim, you played for him. You know how highly he's regarded, and even in a year that has some moments that maybe we'd all like to have back in a play here and there, certainly could have changed things and made Beaver Nation's attitude at large maybe a little bit different right now. But you kind of hear at times a little bit of the unrest and some of the criticism. What are your thoughts about the Beavers under Coach Riley and where it's going from here?
Well, I think it's going to continue on the path it's been on. And you went through 29 years of losing football, Mike. And Coach
28.
Riley,
Don't get carried away now. Only 28. Anyway, go. Yeah.
I was in there in the 29th year then, and we had the final successful season. But Coach Riley built on that. Coach Erickson came in. Coach Erickson had a string of 8-5 seasons, and we had an 8-5 season with Coach Riley my senior year. And then Coach Riley's done a great job over the last several years he's had 2 second-place finishes in the Pac-10 at the time and 12 now. And so when you break all that down, it's all about getting talent in and coaching them up. And I think the talent was dry for a little while. And now we're seeing some precedents put on that recruiting, and we're seeing better players coming into the system. And I think there's some good things in store for the future. Now, it also takes guys coming back and committing to play a full 4 years. And I'm not saying Brandon has to come back, but it helps if a guy like that does stay on and continue the plan that's been put in place.
Well, speaking of Brandon, let's take a look. When you talk about talent level, as this graphic shows very clearly, there was a lot of talent at Oregon State, and the Pac-12 recognized it. There were some other players that certainly, I think, in a lot of other seasons, you'd see their names roll up on this list. But Brandon Cook's the lone first-teamer. You've got some second-team honorees. But, Tim, this, on defense in particular, it's a tough team to make on any level, first or second team.
I look at guys on the second team. Bottom line is if you win more games, some of those guys move to the first team. A guy like Crichton, you look at the D-line, Gardner, Sutton, Riley. Those are good players. Williams, those are very good players to win. If you win more games, Crichton's on that list. You look at the offensive line. Sayamalu's on that first-team offensive line if you win more games. I mean, there's 3 Stanford guys on the second team that couldn't crack the first team, and they're champions of the North, Mike. So really a deep league now that you have 12 teams.
And you take a look, too, the honorable mention quarterback is Sean Mannion, who rewrote Oregon State's record book. A tough year to make these top tiers in the conference.
Very tough year. And if Sean would have finished a little better down the stretch with less interceptions, he probably would have been a little higher. But, I mean, still a great year for him. And, coming back next year, probably some big things for him.
Oh, you look at cornerback. There's so much talent, Mike.
Steven Nelson,
Steven Nelson's honorable mention. Having Sean, he's a great talent at quarterback. But Mariota probably deserved that first position for what he did. I mean, he didn't throw a pick for like 12 games. So, I mean, he did a very good job. I guess 10 games. He did a good job. But you look at Nelson being left off. Even the second team, that just shows you how deep it is and that you have to win games to be on that list.
And speaking of that, Steven Nelson and others will have an opportunity to win more games in 2014. They may still have an opportunity to win one more this year, and we hope so, and we'll be talking about it as we go. But coming up next, we'll kind of put a cap on the regular season, at least for 2013, and talk about Nelson and Dylan Wynn and Sean Mannion. We'll talk about Brandon Cooks, too, and where the Beavers go in 2014. That's all coming up as we roll on Talkin Beavers. As we've mentioned several times during the course of the show, we hope that we have another football show to talk about preparing for the Beavers in the postseason. If we don't, one thing is certain, the regular season is over. And Angie, it's a 6-6 campaign. We've touched on some of the near misses and the heartbreak and the classic game that the 117th Civil War was. But I just say to you, Beaver football 2013, and you say?
Disappointing.
Okay.
I think expectations were really high, and whether that was fair or not, I think it was kind of a letdown. But there was some really good high points as well.
And it's not over
it's
yet,
not over.
per se.
Yeah.
We certainly hope that. I think there's a way to take a little sting out of, if you use the word disappointing, and you're not alone in that.
I think the sting was lessened after Civil War.
Tim, what about you? Your overall take from the regular season? We still hope there's another game, and the story isn't fully written yet. But so far, 12 games, 6-6. Your thoughts?
You know, Mike, I thought we'd have 8 wins on the year. And so in that regard, it is a little disappointing. But I will say at the end of the day, I was entertained. I got to watch what is now the most prolific quarterback wide receiver duo to play the game wearing the Beaver uniform with Cooks and Mannion. So I was entertained every game by those guys. It was fun to see how they got the ball. The running game, it wasn't there. You barely had a 500-yard rusher, and that, I know, will be improved upon.
Yeah.
Those things will be looked at, and it will change. I'll guarantee that. So those are my takeaways. I look at on defense, it's an ever-evolving machine, and Coach Banker, I think, has really sat down and seen what it takes to defend these spread zone read offenses.
They've gotten better over the years.
They have definitely gotten better. They've evolved, and they've moved to putting guys like Dylan Wynn at nose guard, and I'll always remember him trying to get that bull rush on a 340-pound center, and you need speedier linebackers, and they're working on that and getting faster players on the field. But I still think Oregon State is going to be defined on defense by a physical defense, and that's what they've really laid their hat on. And I'm going to blog about some of these things to close this season off on my blog on CSNNW, Mike.
Look forward to reading that. And, you know, when you mention the linebackers, though, when I think about that core alone for next year, when I think about Jabrell and DJ Alexander and Michael Doctor and Caleb Salo and Ramo Magno and Joel Scotty, and there's a lot of talent there.
There's a lot of talent. And, you know, Oregon State also has probably, I would say, their top recruiting class, this last year's class. Lots of talent there. Deshaun Hunt, Brandon Arnold, who I know a lot of people were asking me today on Beaver Blitz whether those guys burned their red shirt. They did not. So they'll be redshirt freshmen. They were on the ready list, suited up every game. But a lot of talent that I think a lot to look forward to in the future.
And you have Michael Doctor back to help lead those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, for me, when I think about 2013, the disappointment of the first home game and the last home game, those are things that I know that are as kind of images. You hope you can expunge those by getting off to a great start early next year at home. I think that's going to be very important, and I think those are things that need to be addressed. With the readiness to play for whatever reason in those games, not quite as apparent, but Coach Riley and his staff will address those things, I think, in a very urgent kind of way, and we won't see any sort of repeats along those lines next year. But 2013 may not be over for football. I know the year 2013 has ended well for a former Beaver baseball great. We gotta give a shout out and congratulations to the pride of Madras, the pride of Oregon State. 7 years, $142 million for Jacoby Ellsbury. How about that?
Do we get a new grandstands, Mike? That's what I want to know.
It will have some effect on Beaver baseball.
It will. It will. Yeah.
You know, he's a great guy, and he will give back to the program. But I also know this: they won't ask him.
No, and he'll do it. He'll do it on his own.
But
He's
then recruiting,
he's a great Beaver.
Yeah.
And our congratulations to Jacoby Ellsbury. That's a good deal, son. We're proud of you and happy for you. Thank you. And we hope that this wasn't the last of football. But whatever the case, we'll be back again with another edition with basketball, maybe some more baseball stuff, and certainly more football on the recruiting trail. Thanks for joining us